I feel like everybody was expecting us to stand the darkling, but we all ended up standing a goat, and you know what? I love that for all of us Grishaverse fans. Hello everybody, it's Sara, welcome back to my channel. Today I am so beyond excited because I am coming at you with my review of the first season of Shadow and Bone. I have just been so excited to film this video because I just cannot wait to just scream and gush about all of my favorite scenes and my favorite characters. It's gonna be such a fun time. Before I begin, I do want to say that I will include different tabs in the description of this video, so if there are certain topics that you want to hear me talk about, you can skip ahead and then go back or do whatever you want. But yeah, I will include different little tabs and sections that you can go to if you want. But yeah, without any further ado, we have so many things to talk about, so let's just jump right into it. And I want to start with my general thoughts on the show. So as you can probably tell from my general vibe right now, I really loved Shadow and Bone. It was everything I wanted in an adaptation. I felt like it really captured the heart of the story and of the characters super well. It was dark, it was spooky, it was magical, it was just all around so good. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it from beginning to end. I thought that the music was phenomenal. I really loved the special effects. I also really loved the cinematography of everything. Just everything was so beautifully shot and produced, and the plot kept me engaged the entire time, obviously because I just love the Grishaverse so much. But also I feel like even if you're not really familiar with the story, you will get hooked so easily because it's just action after action, and all of the characters are just so compelling. All of the performances are insane, and I just really love the cast as well. They're all just so lovely. Now there are two things that I'm a little bit more critical or not really sure of where I'm standing on when it comes to the show. The first one of them is the casting. Like I said, I really love all of the actors, and I think that they delivered such incredible performances, and I think that they all really brought the characters to life in their own personal way, but also in a way that felt very close to the characters that we already know and love from the series. I think that they captured them so incredibly well. But at the same time, I also definitely agree with a lot of the criticism that has been done in the last couple of months leading to the release of the show when it comes to the casting of Jesper and Nina, because I feel like Netflix kind of lost an opportunity to have a cast that was even more diverse than what they already have within the show. That is not to take away the talent or the incredible performances that Daniel and Kit brought for their characters, but I know that a lot of people were really expecting more from the adaptation, and I think that it's very important that we keep on being critical of those things because representation does matter and it is important. And so I will leave links to different videos or Twitter threads that talk about this in the description of this video, so if you want to go and check that out, I would definitely recommend. I know that a lot of people of color and a lot of plus size people in the book community have talked about those issues, and I think that it is very important that we listen to them. And so yeah, definitely check out the description box. The other thing that I'm a little bit on the fence about when it comes to the adaptation is the racism that they integrated into the world of Ravka. I know that it is discussed way more in the latest series in the Grishaverse, like in King of Scars and Rule of Wolves. It is very much more part of the plot, so I kind of understand why they would do that. But once again, I think that it is very important that even if we enjoyed the show, we keep on being critical of the way that these topics were handled in the series itself. So once again, I will leave videos and Twitter threads down below if you want to go and check them out. I have been on the fence about this topic ever since watching the show, and I definitely am not the right person to say if it's harmful in any way, shape or form. So definitely go and read reviews by people of color, listen to what they have to say about this topic. That's what I've been doing to try and understand their point of view, because even if I really enjoyed the show, that is definitely something that I felt a little bit iffy about. So I'm just really trying to educate myself and listen to other people's experiences and opinions. So I think that this is everything that I had to say for my general thoughts and opinions on the show. Now let's jump into my favorite moments of the entire series, and I have so many things to say, like I said, because I just want to gush about all of my favorite characters. This is what we're here for, so let's do it. The first thing that we need to talk about, obviously, is inej, because you all know how much I absolutely adore Inej. I consider myself to be her #1 stan. I'm writing my master's thesis about her, so obviously she was the star of the show for me. Amita Suman, she is so perfect as Inej. I love her performance so much. I loved how much she understood her character. She really felt like Inej straight up coming out of the page of the book, and it was just so wonderful to see her play. She was just so perfect. I also really need to talk about the scene of Inej going to the menagerie and removing all of the knives that she has on her. It was so good, so iconic. We truly stan. And then when she removes the one that's in her hair and the guard says that one's new and she's like, do you want to see how it works? Iconic. I loved it so much. It was so good. And obviously that's what I love about Inej as a whole in general, because she is so strong and so fierce, but she is also very vulnerable. And I think that Amita Suman really portrayed that super well. Like every single time the Sun Summoner is mentioned, you can really see Inej being like so touched and how she truly believes in her. And it's just so beautiful because it really portrays her fate so well. Just to see her pray and to see her like look at Alina when she's displaying her powers. These scenes were so beautiful and so pure, and really what is the essence of Inej's character. But then again, I also loved all of the scenes where we could see how much of a badass she is, like when she's doing the heist, or when she's hiding from Jesper, who is just like completely puzzled because she keeps on disappearing, or just all of the scenes with her knives and just her throwing the knives. When she threw that knife at the darkling, I collapsed, like physically. I screamed watching that scene. It was so good, and the fact that she kissed it before throwing it, it was so perfect. I loved it so much. And oh my god, like I had never ever thought that I wanted to see an interaction between Inej and the darkling, but this was just so perfect. Like, please, yes, kill him, queen. Another thing that I also really absolutely adored, and I'm going to be gushing about kanej in a minute, like I have so many things to say about them, but one of my favorite scenes is when she needs to try out to be the acrobat for this troop that they're going to infiltrate to get into the little palace, and she gives all of her knives to Kaz, and this interaction killed me inside. Like their long eye contact as she is just like removing her knives and like gently giving them to him, I lost it. It was so good. When Alina gives her a knife at the end and she says, I know exactly what to name her, it's so good. It's so good, because if you haven't read Six of Crows, you might not know that like all of her knives are named after her saints, and so Alina giving her the knife was just so meaningful and so beautiful, and you see how important it is to her. You could really see like who Inej is as a person, and that is just like the purest, most kindest soul, but also just a freaking badass who will throw a knife at you. And that's why I love her so much. I also really loved how they decided to portray like baby Inej, like Inej before Six of Crows, who has never killed anyone and who doesn't want to kill anyone, but then her first kill is to protect Kaz. And that part really destroyed my emotions. I lost it. I've watched this scene like a dozen times and it almost makes me cry every single time, because it is so exactly the way that these two characters would react, and it's just so perfect, and it captured them so well. Because like she is so distressed because she has done something that she had told herself she would never do, but then it was to save Kaz, whom she really cares about, and then Kaz doesn't really know like how to comfort her, and he's completely unfazed by the fact that this guy is now dead at his feet, because he doesn't care, but he knows that she does, and so he's just like trying his best to like comfort her. And when he said, "Look at me," I died. I just died. It was so good. It was everything. I loved it so much. But then to come back to Inej and her knives, I just really adored the scene with the Inferni woman. Once again, they portrayed her trying to give that other woman mercy, even if she was trying to kill her. But then when she started talking about killing everyone that Inej loves, Inej is like, in that case, I'll take my knife back. That line is so good. I loved it so much. It really shows how well developed her character is, and once again how well Amita Suman understood the assignment. She truly understood the assignment. What can I say? She was so perfect. Okay, now let's talk about Kaz, and then I'll gush about Kanej in a couple of minutes, because Kaz fucking Brecker was so perfect. First of all, I am obsessed with Freddie Carter, and it was just so good to see Kaz once again before Six of Crows, because he's like a little bit softer, a little bit kinder, but also as ruthless as the Kaz that we see in Six of Crows, and I just love that so much. Two of my favorite scenes are definitely on the funnier side, and the first one is obviously the one with Milo. I feel like everybody was expecting us to stand the darkling, but we all ended up standing a goat, and you know what? I love that for all of us Grishaverse fans, but seeing Kaz Brecker begrudgingly holding a little baby goat was not something that I thought that I was ever going to see, but now that I've seen it, I can never unsee it, and let me tell you, I'm so happy about that. And then the other scene that absolutely killed me was the scene when he's like in disguise as this kind of like artist, and he's like, "May the sun summoner bless you," or like whatever. That scene was so incredibly funny and ridiculous, and just I think that the thing that makes those two scenes funny is just that you know who Kaz Brecker is, and you know how violent he can be, you know he's a criminal, so to see him like holding a goat or pretending to be this like super fancy artist is just so incredibly funny, and I love that they did that. Then the next scene that I want to talk about is the scene when he breaks the Inferni's hand, because if the Kaz that we had seen until that point was a little bit softer than the one that we see in Six of Crows, there we can really see dirty hands coming through, and I was like, there he is! There is my ruthless criminal that I love, and oh my gosh, it's such a good scene. I also love that they kind of kept it a little bit later in the season, because if you're like getting a little bit attached to Kaz, just like in Six of Crows, you know, like you get to know him, you get to like appreciate him as a character, and then you get to this scene and you're like, oh, okay, this guy is kind of crazy, and I just love that because it's all a part of his character, and I love that they kept it for a little bit later so that the people who don't yet know Kaz Brecker are a little bit shocked. And I just think that's brilliant, and I think that once again this scene was just so well acted. Freddie Carter just really went from 0 to 100 in that scene, and it was so good. Oh my gosh, I enjoyed every single second of it, even if it was a little bit terrifying. And then obviously we have the scene with the darkling, the scene that everybody was hoping for. When they met in the alleyway, my heart literally stopped. And I know that Kaz is alive, like I know he doesn't die, but my heart still stopped because I was like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen? Literally the two most powerful people in those two series meeting. It was incredible. I really love how he escaped the darkling's cut, because no one has ever done so before, at least from what I can remember. And so Kaz is kind of like the first person to have a confrontation with the darkling and come out of it unscathed, and I love that for him. I love that they did that for him. Everybody wanted him to whack the darkling with his cane, which I definitely understand and I was a little bit hoping for. But I think that the trick that he does with the bomb and the light is just so good and so incredibly Kaz Brecker of him, and I just loved it so much. It's like my little trickster king wouldn't even bother with the violence. He just decided to poof his way out of there, and I loved it. Okay, so we're now entering the Kanej portion of this video, and if you don't like squealing, I would honestly exit, because the only sounds that I'm going to be emitting in the next couple of minutes are probably going to be very high-pitched. I love that from the get-go, we established very firmly that Kaz Brecker hates everyone but Inej. And that is because in the first like 5 minutes of them being together, he straight up tells her that there is no one like her and that she is one of a kind. And honestly, that made me scream as well. I combusted. Definitely he tells her that for completely wrong reasons, and that is because he doesn't want to get another girl out of the menagerie, but also it's so Casbaker. Also when he, oh my gosh, when he put the Crow's Club on the line for her, my emotions were destroyed constantly in this show. And honestly, I blame all of the writers for just giving me so many good lines. The Inej, look at me line, the I trust no one but you line, and how he tells Inej that no saint has ever watched over him the way that she does. I cannot. That scene made me sob. I really lost it at that scene, and it was just so beautiful because it's also so true, because he doesn't believe in anything but his crows and Inej, and it was just so good. Another scene that was also very sad, but that I also really love, is when Inej gets hurt and you can see in his face that he is dying to get over to her and to help her, but he can't, and that killed me inside. Like, I was so destroyed. I couldn't. I also really love that scene where Inej is trying to fight off the Volcra, but she doesn't have any knives anymore, and then Kaz just like walks up and whacks that motherfucker with his cane like there's no tomorrow. Oh my gosh, I love that scene so much. It was so good. Also, when they said no mourners, no funerals, I think that I saw somewhere that this was improvised and that they just decided to say it, and it's so good. It's so perfect. It fits perfectly. I just absolutely adored it, and obviously like I screamed when they said it. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is that I think, if I remember correctly, the one and only time that we see Kaz truly smile during the entirety of the series is when he says that Alina is a saint at the very end. When Nina is asking them if it's true that Alina died, and he says, I don't know if she's alive, but I know that she's a saint. And Inej is like super surprised that he finally admitted that he kind of believes in Alina, or at least he's pretending to, and he smiles at her, and that smile melted my entire heart. Okay, moving on. Since we're talking about the crows, I definitely want to talk about Jesper, because Jesper was just so incredible. He was so funny and so smooth and just everything that Jesper is, and I love him so much. I think that Kit Young did an incredible job. He was perfect as Jesper. I just love him. That scene when they're crossing the fold, iconic, absolutely perfect. He's like hugging Milo and just shooting the Volcras. That scene was just so good. It was absolute perfection. I really loved it. It was funny, it was epic, just everything about it was so good. I also just really love the friendship between Jesper and Inej. I thought it was so wonderful, and it's definitely just as it is portrayed in the book. They're just always bantering and always teasing one another, and I just loved it so much. They were both so perfect. And when she calls him Jess for the first time, and you see the Kaz is like completely disgusted, but Jesper is like my best friend, and I loved it. It was just the perfect crows dynamic during the entire time. You can really tell that they worked really hard, and they have such good chemistry together, like the three of them. They're just perfect, and Jesper is definitely one of my favorite characters into the entire show. He made me laugh so many times. All of his lines and his facial expressions, just everything was so good. Now let's talk about the other group of characters, so Alina, Mal, and the Darkling. I just want to say right off the bat, Jessie Maylee is the perfect Alina Starkov, and I will hear nothing other than that. I absolutely loved their performance. They were absolutely incredible, especially in those last scenes on the skiff. I was watching Alina struggling, and I was watching her really going through it, and I just loved the performance that Jessie put out into those scenes. It was just so good. You could really feel the anguish of her character, and it was absolutely wonderful. I think that Alina is a character that people don't appreciate enough because she is so realistic. She is definitely very flawed, but she is also very like kind and compassionate and brave, and I think that we should all just love her so much more. I love how she is just trying to belong and she is just trying to find her place, but she also learns to become so much more confident, and she really grows as a character. And I think one of the best scenes that really describes that is when she's doing the demonstration at the fete, and when she gives this like little smirk to the darkling. I just loved it so much. I also really love the relationship between Mal and Alina. I've always been a Malina fan. I think they're just so sweet. All of these beautiful lines that they have for one another, like meet me at the meadow or you're my true north, like all of these are just so pure and so beautiful, and I really loved it. I also really love that we got to see more of Mal's perspective, because that's definitely something that we don't get in the books, and it really made me appreciate his character so much more once again, because I could really see like what he was going through and all of the different obstacles that he had to overcome to grow as a character too, and I just loved it so much. I also really love the scene when they are reunited finally, and that scene was just so sweet. And when Alina is trying to explain that she has done some things that she isn't proud of, and Mal just tells her that she doesn't owe him any explanation, I love that scene so much. Like, it really shows how much they care about one another. And then we need to take a moment to talk about the darkling, because oh boy. I have never been and never will be a darkling fan, because I just really don't like him. I think he's crusty and disgusting and evil. I don't like him. But also, it's Ben Barnes, and I have had a crush on Ben Barnes ever since I was like 10 years old, so obviously I love to see him in the show. I think he was incredible. First of all, he's not only pretty, like he's too pretty it's not legal, but also he did such an incredible job at being the villain. He was so good, he was so creepy, he was also so charming, which I think is definitely something that is very important about the darkling, because that is how he manipulates people. I also need to say that I really loved how dramatic he was. He just really has that dramatic villain aesthetic going for him, and I really liked it. And I think that's also definitely a part of like Ben Barnes' charisma. You couldn't get your eyes off the screen because of how just magnetic he is, and I love that so much. Also, another thing that kind of grossed me out but also was super cool was the cut. I was not expecting it to be like as intense as it was in that first scene when he cuts the Sheridan in two, but oh my gosh, it kind of took me by surprise, honestly, how gruesome it was, but I liked it. I also need to talk about the stag, because I love deers so much. Deers are like one of my favorite animals, so to see this like absolutely beautiful, magnificent stag being killed by this freaking asshole was just so awful for me. Like, I cried the first time because I just felt so bad for this poor stag. And honestly, like, if you love the darkling after you see him chop this beautiful creature's head off, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to you. He did not deserve this. The stag deserved better. And when the darkling kills it and Alina just screams, "You murderer, you stupid fool," I really felt that. I really felt that. Also, the entire color, I really loved, but also hated how disturbing it was. And I really loved that they didn't try to make it pretty, because it's not supposed to be a pretty thing. It's not supposed to be beautiful. It's just the darkling abusing his power on this innocent women. So, you know, I think that it definitely represents that very well. And I really love at the end when Alina realizes that the stag chose her, and she really embraces her powers and just like does this like huge explosion of light. It was so good. I also really want to talk about all of those very tiny interconnecting details that we got into the last couple of episodes, like how the bullet that Jesper places around Milo's neck ends up being the reason why Mal is able to escape the darkling, and then also when Inej throws a knife at the darkling and then he removes it and just throws it on the ground, and then Alina is capable because of that knife to like remove the part of the amplifier in his hand. I just love that so much. I also really love that we got to see Lee in the show. I love that she had a cameo, and I think that her cameo was absolutely perfect. Just seeing her hug Alina brought so many tears to my eyes because it felt just like such a special moment, and it was absolutely beautiful and wonderful, and I'm so happy that they decided that this was going to be her cameo. It was just so good, and it definitely felt like such a moving and powerful moment for her. So yeah, I really love that. Then if we go back to all of the other characters, I just loved all of them so much. Bagra was such an icon. I really loved her. She was so badass. And then Jenya and David were just so sweet, and they had such good chemistry together, and how they were just like stealing glances at each other across the room. I just loved them so much, and I love them as separate characters as well. I think Jenya was just absolutely amazing. I love her to pieces. I can't wait to see more of her if we have other seasons. And David, I just love him. He's so precious. And when he threw the book at Jesper, Shadow and Bone, I just laughed so hard. I love them so much. And I also really loved Nina and Matthias and their banter and their enemies to lover tension. And it was just so good. I really love them. I think the actors did such a great job once again. But I think that pretty much sums up all of the things that I had written down. I just really love this show. I absolutely adored it. I'm definitely going to watch it again, even if I've already watched it twice in the span of a week, because I just loved it so much. It was everything that I wanted and more, and I really hope that we get other seasons. But I think it might be possible because it's very popular right now. It's been in Netflix's top 10 for like a week, which is so incredible, and I'm so happy about it. And I'm so happy that Lee's universe is getting all of the recognition that it deserves. It already had been getting all of the recognition, but now it's even bigger, and I'm just so excited about it. And it makes me so happy that so many more people will discover those characters and this world, because it's just so wonderful, and I want everyone to be able to experience it. But this brings us to the end of this video. I hope that you really enjoyed it. If you've watched up until this point, thank you so much for listening to me scream and squeal about all of my favorite characters. It really means a lot. If you enjoyed it, also please don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!